Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome all of you all to the Applied Bhagavatam classes. We are on second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, and today we're going to be studying the fifth and the sixth chapter of the second canto. As I had mentioned to you all last time, that these two chapters are very highly technical chapters. As you can see from the notes itself, it's pretty exhaustive and not exactly the regular format of notes. So today I'm going to be trying my best to help you all understand this technical part in as simple a language as possible and in a way that we can understand and apply in our lives. So this part of the Bhagavatam starts with, if you remember the last time where we ended, Parikshit Maharaj and Shukadeva Goswami were having a discussion, and Parikshit Maharaj wanted to know from Shukadeva Goswami how creation was done. He wanted elaborate details of how the creation takes place. And Shukadeva Goswami, first he offers prayers to the Lord to empower him to speak on the creation. And towards the last part, the last verse of the previous chapter, Shukadeva Goswami quotes a story of Brahma and Narad Muni, where Brahma and Narad Muni are having a discussion about creation. So these two chapters are essentially that story. The discussion between Narad Muni and Lord Brahma, where Narad Muni approaches Lord Brahma and he says, Yad Rupam Yad Adishtanam Yatha Shrishtam Idam Prabhu Yat Samstam Yat Paramam Yak Chat Tat Tattvam Vedavik. So if you see these, so Narad Muni is asking 6 questions to Lord Brahma in this particular verse. So all the 6 questions are mentioned in the notes for all of you to have a look at. So today essentially we are going to be discussing these 6 questions only and the answers to these 6 questions. So Narad Muni tells Lord Brahma, my dear father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifested world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control it is being done? Narad Muni asks Brahma, my dear father, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? Under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all the living entities with all the material elements by your personal energy? And then Narad Muni gives an example. He said, just like a spider creates a network of cobweb, and the way the spider creates a network of cobweb is from its own mouth, right? It doesn't use any other elements. It creates from its own mouth itself. And the way that cobweb is created, it is such a powerful creation that the spider itself is powerful enough to manifest the web. Similarly, are you self-sufficient and do you create without anybody else's help? So this is Narad Muni's question. And he tells Lord Brahma, you are everything to me. You are the controller of all. And therefore, whatever I'm asking you as a student. So please instruct me. That's what Narad Muni's question is. So the next 2 chapters are Brahma's answers to these 6 questions specifically of Narad Muni. Brahma first begins by admitting the truth. He tells, my dear Narada, you have asked all these questions because I have been inspired to see the power of the personality of Godhead. So he says, he begins by offering obeisances to the Supreme Lord, Vasudeva, whose inconceivable potencies influences everybody. And anybody who calls me the Supreme Controller, they are influenced by the Maya Shakti of the Lord. The illusory energy of the Lord is so powerful that those who are bewildered by the illusory energy talk nonsense. So Brahmaji is telling Narad Muni, so Narad Muni is asking Brahma that are you God? Are you the source of everything? Are you the creator of everything? I only know you, I don't know anybody else. Please tell me, O Father, how powerful you are. And Brahmaji, he tells Narad Muni very truthfully that I am not powerful at all. He tells Narad Muni very truthfully that I am also created. And all the power that I have to create is coming from Vasudeva. This is the reason he is the origin of this sampradaya. Our sampradaya in which we are all part of, which is Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, in which all of us in ISKCON are connected to, originates from Lord Brahma. And the reason it originates from Lord Brahma is because he is so truthful. Narad Muni is considering him to be God. Easily he can say, yes, yes, I am God, isn't it? Narad Muni is depending on him. He's completely, influenced by him. He's inspired by him. But Brahma, he chooses to tell the truth. And he tells Lord Narad Muni that I am a kid. I am a small child. I am nothing compared to Vasudeva. And he says, I am only a secondary creator. The one who has created me is Vasudeva. One time, there's this very beautiful story of Lord Krishna that appears partly in the Srimad Bhagavatam, but the continuation of this is there in the Sthala Purana of one of the temples in South India. Usha was the daughter of Banasur. In the story in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a story of how Usha was this beautiful daughter of this Asura named Banasur. And Banasur ruled this place known as Sonitapuram. One day, Lord Shiva and Parvati comes to the house of Banasur as guests. And Parvati meets Usha at that point. And she tells him that tomorrow morning you will have a dream. And in that dream, there will be a very handsome person appearing in your dream. If you marry that person, your life will be good. So she blesses, Usha like this and she goes away. So the next day when she gets up in the morning, she calls her friend whose name is Chitralekha. And she tells her friend that I got this dream. And in this dream, this handsome young boy was there. I want to marry him only. So she tells him, can you help me find this boy? Chitralekha, she knew the art of painting, and she said, I will draw the most beautiful people in the world, one by one. And you decide who is the one that came in your dream. Saying that, she begins to draw. The first person that she draws is a photo of Krishna. She draws a painting of Lord Krishna. The moment Usha sees that painting of Lord Krishna, she says, he is more beautiful than the person who came in my dream. I would have married him without speaking only, but Parvati Devi told me to marry the person in my dream only, so I can't marry him. So she says, paint another person. And then she goes on to paint the son of Lord Krishna, Pradyumna, in the painting. And when Usha sees this, she says, the one who came in my dream is little less beautiful than this person. But I still can't marry this person because Parvati told me to marry only the person who came in my dream. So then Chitralekha again began to draw. And then she drew Aniruddha, who was the grandson of Krishna. The moment Usha saw the grandson of Krishna, she said, this is the person that came in my dream. I want to marry him. So Chitralekha, she had this mystical abilities of transporting, so she transported Aniruddha with his bed directly to the bedroom of Usha. And Aniruddha, when he gets up, he's like, in the bedroom of Usha over here, And then they both fell in love with each other. And then somehow after many days, Banasur comes to know there's a boy in my girl's house, room. And then eventually, Banasur captures Aniruddha, puts him in a prison. And Krishna comes to know. Krishna attacks Banasur's kingdom with his whole army. And eventually, Aniruddha and Pradyumna are married together. During the marriage ceremony, Aniruddha and Usha are married together. During the marriage ceremony of Usha and Aniruddha, at that time Krishna, Rukmini, and all of them come, At that time, Chitralekha talks to, Rukmini Devi. And she tells him, you are saved because of Parvati. So Rukmini says, what do you mean by I'm saved because of Parvati? She said, the first person I drew was your husband, Krishna. And he already has 16,108 queens. And if only Anirudh had not come in her dream, she would have surely married Krishna, because she said, I would have married him blindly. So Rukmini, she felt a little, bewildered. He's saying, my husband is grandfather now. And Anirudh is grandson. And instead of choosing the grandson, she's saying, I'll marry the grandfather. So Rukmini got totally bewildered. That day, she went to Krishna and she took some butter in her hand. And on the moustache of Krishna, she put butter to make him look old. Because she realized that, he is looking so young that all young girls are running after him. So now it's, high time I take some action and make him look a little older. Obviously, there is a temple of Lord Krishna in South India. His name is Partha Sarathi. And in that temple, Krishna has a white moustache. Based on this story, Rukmini Devi putting butter on his moustache. So the point is, externally, he is so handsome to look at. But internally, he is the oldest. He is much, much older than Brahma also. You've seen paintings of Brahma. Obviously, you will always see, Brahma with big beard, and white hair and all. Have you ever seen Krishna with white hair? You will never find that. That's why people get very confused. Because whenever they understand the whole idea of God, they always think God means somebody very elderly. And then they see Krishna who is so young, they just are not able to handle this fact that such a young person can be God, basically. Brahmaji is telling Narad Muni here that don't be bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord. Just based on the illusory energy, if you think that I am the creator and I have created everything, that means understand that Krishna's Maya Shakti has completely overpowered you. And therefore, you are not able to understand the truth. So Brahmaji begins with this. And then one by one, he begins to answer the questions of Narad Muni. The first question that Narad Muni asks Brahma is, Yad Rupam. What are the characteristics of this universe? And Lord Brahma, to answer that question, speaks about 5 elementary ingredients which form the base of this universe. And the 5 elementary ingredients that Brahma speaks about are first, Dravyam. Dravyam means the ingredients of this universe, which is earth, water, fire, air, ether, etc. The second is Karma, or the interaction between entities in this universe, which sets the universe in motion. And everything is running on Kala. That means it is set up by the time factor. And then there is the fourth ingredient, which is Swabhava, which is the nature of the living entities, which is Jiva, or the living being. So these 5 together form the characteristics of the universe, or the base on which everything is in the universe is created. So all the living beings in this world, they serve the Lord. But unfortunately, we have 5 senses, which are like 5 thieves, which prevent the soul from going towards the Lord. So ideally, the way this universe is created so that we can all connect with God. We can all use this human form of life, use this particular existence of ours to connect with the Supreme Lord. But unfortunately, the way the universe is created is that it is a very bewildering universe. And therefore, we all take shelter of external things more than taking shelter of internal things. So the idea is all the facilities that we are given, the sense of hearing, the sense of seeing, the sense of smelling, the sense of eating, all the senses that we are being given, they're ideally supposed to be used in connection with God. The eyes are supposed to be seeing the Lord, but unfortunately we are using the eyes for seeing the worldly objects. The ears are supposed to be used for hearing the praises of the Lord, but we're using the ears for hearing our own praises and for hearing mundane sounds. The tongue is supposed to be used to chant the holy names of the Lord, but we use the tongue for unnecessary speaking. The nose is supposed to be used for smelling the tulsi that is offered to the Lord, or flowers that is offered to the Lord. But unfortunately, we're using the nose for smelling all other things, perfumes and deos and all that. The body should be used to embrace the Lord or the devotees of the Lord. But unfortunately, we're using the body to embrace mundane stuff. So now, when the Lord creates this world, senses are created, sense objects are created. And unfortunately, instead of people being attracted towards the Lord who is within our hearts, they are all attracted to external stuff, external things. To help us, the Supreme Lord goes inside our heart and plants a small seed of bhakti in the heart, in the soil of our heart. And from that seed of bhakti, a small plant comes up. And that small plant comes up and it has 4 leaves. And the 4 leaves of this little plant that comes up are Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Sankarshan, and Purushottam. These are 4 little leaves that come up in the soil of our hearts. And the stem of that plant is Vasudev, the Mula Murti. And the first stage in which all of us, once creation takes place, the Supreme Lord enters into every living entity and plants a small plant. And from that plant, these 4 little leaves are coming out, and the stem is coming out. And that brings us to the first stage of devotion. And in the first stage of bhakti, a person who is externally engaged in mundane activities, because there is these 4 little personalities inside our hearts, slowly, the second stage where the person starts controlling his senses, going from external things and starts controlling his senses and taking charge of his senses. So when we all come to the path of Krishna consciousness, as soon as we come in, a small seed of bhakti is planted in our hearts. And the first thing that happens as a result of that small seed of bhakti in our heart is that we start withdrawing from external engagements. I'm sure all of you all in your own lives have experienced, right? Suddenly you feel less attraction towards TV. You suddenly start feeling less attraction towards, watching movies and mundane stuff. Suddenly you start feeling less attraction towards Coldplay. I don't know. I can't say that, confidently. And suddenly you start feeling less attraction towards eating stuff outside. So suddenly, if you find that there is some detachment developing, suddenly you start some kind of detachment, you should know that the sprout has taken plant. It has become a small plant in your heart. So the first stage is that the seed is planted. The second stage is that these 4 leaves come up, and then the senses start becoming under control. But though the senses are under control, the mind is still not under control. And that's where the third stage comes, where in the third stage, the devotees actually start getting hold of their mind. And their mind also becomes more focused on the Paramatma within the heart. And then finally, there's a fourth stage of bhakti where that plant grows into a tree and attains perfection, and the whole heart is occupied by the Lord. So till we reach that stage, we are very, very far from the path of devotion. But the purpose of creation is to connect us with the Paramatma. So Narad Muni asks, what are the characteristics of the creation? And Brahma explains these 5 things that are the characteristics of the universe. And then Narad Muni asks Lord Brahma, Yad Adhishthanam. Adhishthanam means, what is the shelter of this universe? What is the base of this universe? And to answer that question, Lord Brahma speaks 2 beautiful verses which we will chant. 2.5, 15 and 16. Narayana Paraveda Deva Narayanangaja Narayana Paraloka Narayana Paramakha Narayana Paro Yogo Narayana Param Tapa Narayana Param Jnanam Narayana Paragati. So essentially, Lord Brahma is saying that Lord Narayan is the shelter. The Vedas are made by Lord Narayan and they are meant for Lord Narayan. The demigods, the devatas, are meant for serving Lord Narayan. The planets are meant for the sake of Lord Narayan. The different sacrifices that we perform are all meant for the pleasure of Lord Narayan. The different meditations that we perform are all for realizing Lord Narayan. All the austerities that we perform are aimed at achieving Lord Narayan. The culture of knowledge is for getting a glimpse of Lord Narayan. And salvation or moksha is meant for entering the kingdom of Lord Narayan. So Lord Brahma is telling Narad Muni that the base, the shelter of everything in creation is Lord Narayan only. Kashyap Muni had two wives, Vinata and Kadru. One time, both these women, they had a very fierce competition. And the competition was a very strange competition. The competition was, they had to guess the color of the tail of a horse named Ucheshrava. So Vinata said, Ucheshrava is a white horse. White horse has a white tail. Kadru said, no, it has a black tail. And they both decided to bet. And they decided, whoever wins the bet, the other person will become a slave of that person for life. I mean, what costly bets they put in. Literally height of gambling. So they both bet and they went and saw Ucheshrava. And Ucheshrava was a white horse with a black tail. Actually, they had a white tail only. But Kadru had asked her sons, the Nagas, to go and hang on the tail of the horse. So from very far they saw and looked like a black tail. And that's how Kadru won and Vinata lost. So Vinata became a slave of Kadru for her whole life. Practically for decades together she was serving Kadru. And then eventually Vinata gave birth to Garuda, who was one of her sons. And Garuda saw his mother. Garuda was such a powerful personality. He saw his mother as a slave. He was feeling very bad. And he wanted to liberate his mother from slavery. So he went and asked Kadru and the sons of Kadru that what should I do to liberate my mother from slavery? So, Kadru, she realized Garuda is not an ordinary person. So she shouldn't ask him for something ordinary. So she and her sons got together and they decided that we will let your mother go free if you get us nectar from the heavens, celestial Amrit. So Garud went to the heavens, fought against all the gods, literally won against every single god, and got the celestial nectar back. And even while he was leaving, Indra came and fought with him. And Garuda defeated Indra also. And after that, Garuda got this new name. He was called as Sudhakar. Sudha means nectar, and Kara comes from the word Hara. Sudha Haran, so the one who stole nectar or bought nectar. So on the way back, Garuda was thinking, everybody is so much after this nectar, and I fought so hard to get this nectar. Before I give it to Kadru, might as well I also taste it a little bit. So thinking like this, Garuda came down from the heavens and he reached Vrindavan. And he was sitting on a Kadamba tree on the banks of the Yamuna river. And he put this spot of nectar on that tree. And he wanted to taste a little bit of that nectar. And when he tasted the nectar, he felt it is so bitter. He spat it out. He said, yucks, I thought nectar will actually taste like nectar. but this is tasting so bitter. So he couldn't figure it out. He went directly to Kadru and the snakes and he said, take this nectar. And of course, his mother was, left from slavery. So he was thinking that how can I went through so much trouble to get nectar, but how can nectar taste so bad? So while he was thinking like this, he suddenly heard a voice. And he turned around, he saw his father, Kashyap Muni, standing there. And he asked him, are you having this doubt that why is celestial nectar tasting so, bitter? So he explained that celestial nectar, it tastes according to the person who is tasting it. If a healthy person tastes celestial nectar, it tastes bitter. But if a very unhealthy person tastes celestial nectar, it tastes very sweet. Because you are fit and fine, everything, you are healthy, the nectar is tasting bitter. But Kashyap Muni asked him, do you want a nectar that actually tastes like nectar? Garud said, yes, yes, I really want a nectar that tastes like nectar. After this bitter experience, I'm done with all this nectar. I don't want any of these bitter nectars. So then Kashyap Muni, he took Garud with him and he brought him in front of a beautiful deity of Lord Krishna who is known as Sharangapani. And he told him, sit here and drink this nectar. And he told him, this is a nectar that never gets bitter. It will always taste very, very tasty. And this is a nectar for which you don't have to have any fights. You don't have to fight with anybody. And this is a nectar that will remain ever fresh forever. All the nectar of this world, no matter how beautiful it is, how tasty it is, like mango juice, after 15-20 days doesn't taste the same, isn't it? However tasty it is, at some point it starts getting bitter. But this nectar will eternally taste the same. And Garuda, he sat in front of the deity and then he started drinking the nectar. That's why you will find in almost every temple of Lord Vishnu, this Garuda sitting right in front of the Lord. And he's looking at the Lord and tasting the nectar of the Lord. He had one bad experience of tasting nectar that was bitter. After that, he never attempted any of the haste, robberies of this world to rob nectar. He's getting free nectar sitting in front of the Supreme Lord, right? So all of us, we are so fortunate that we're getting to taste that celestial nectar which is right in front of us. Lord Narayan, he is not just the shelter of this world, but he is the shelter eternally. One of the names of Lord Narayan, he is known as Shashvata. The word Shashvata means eternal. But the actual full word for this is Amrita Shashvata Sthana. Amrita Shashvata means he is nectar that is eternal and that never gets spoiled. So Brahmaji, he's telling Narad Muni here that the base on which this whole world is built is Lord Narayan. Everything that we do in this world is meant for the pleasure of Lord Narayan. All the Vedas are meant for the pleasure of Lord Narayan. All the tapa, all the austerities that we do are meant for the pleasure of Narayan. The meditation that we do is focused on Lord Narayan. So like this, he's saying that the basis of this world is Lord Narayan. And then Narad Muni asks him, Yatha Shrishtam, how is this world created? And Lord Brahma goes on to explain very elaborately the process of creation of this world. And while describing the process of creation of this world, Lord Brahma, he is describing the sequence of how creation happens. So if you all can see in the charts that is given to you all on as an answer to the third one, the sequence is mentioned over there. So there are two types of shrishtis that happen while creation happens. The first shrishti is called as Karana Shrishti, and the second shrishti is known as Karya Shrishti. The first table that you see in front of you all is called Karana Shrishti. So essentially in Karana Shrishti what happens is that the Supreme Lord, Karanadakshayi Vishnu, he glances on the sum total of the material energy, which is known as Maya. He infuses the sum total of material energy with time, kala, and with karma, destiny, and with swabhava of all the jivas. And thus he agitates the sum total of this material energy. So essentially, the material energy is known as pradhana. It is in a undifferentiated or unmixed state. So it's all mixed up. Everything is in one big lump, it's one big mix. So by the glance of Mahavishnu, of Karanadakshay Vishnu, just by the glance of Vishnu, the entire, the mix becomes agitated. And the agitated equilibrium state is known as Pradhana. And from Pradhana is produced Mahatattva. Mahatattva is a state in which the three modes originate. And predominantly, the mode of goodness and the mode of passion originate in the state of Mahatattva. So, at the level of Mahatattva, the universe or the ingredients of the universe they start to split. And prominently, they split into the mode of goodness and the mode of passion, Jnana and Kriya Shaktis. And then the Mahatattva transforms into Ahankara, which is predominantly Tamagun or the mode of ignorance. And from this state, there is a manifestation of three Shaktis, which is Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti. So, in which these three modes, Tamagun, Sattvagun, Rajagun, originate. And from Dravya Shakti originates the five gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. From Kriya Shakti originates the senses, all the senses, the five senses that we know of. And from the Dravya Shakti, from the Jnana Shakti originates the Devatas of the senses. So now, if you notice, these three levels have happened over here. So there is first, everything is together. Karanadakshay Vishnu impregnates the universe with his glance, and immediately as he impregnates the universe with his glance, the Pradhana gets created, and from Pradhana, the Mahatattva gets created, and from Mahatattva, the Ahankar gets created, and from Ahankar, there are these three Shaktis: Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Dravya Shakti that get created. From the Jnana Shakti get created the mind and the 10 senses, 10 sense devatas. From the Kriya Shakti get created the prana and the 10 senses and the intelligence. And from the Dravya Shakti get created the 5 tanmatras and the 5 elements. How these elements are created is very interesting. It is explained, the first element that gets created in this universe is ether. Along with ether is created the function of ether, which is sound. So ether manifests first, and then sound is associated with ether. And then from ether manifests air, the air element. And along with the air element manifests the touch element. You can feel, the air. Ether you can't feel or see, you can only hear. And from air element manifests the fire element. With fire element manifests form. Fire is the first thing that you can actually see having a form, basically. Air doesn't have a form. Ether doesn't have a form. From fire manifests the water element. Now imagine this, according to the scriptures. From fire, water comes. If you actually see very carefully, in fire there is water. If you very carefully observe fire, you'll find a very fine water element inside that fire. So the scriptures explain that from fire comes the water element. And as soon as the water element is born, there is a taste that is also associated along with it. And from water element manifests the earth element. And along with the earth element, the sense of smell manifests. So from each of these elements, the tanmatras manifest. That is the associated element that is along with those elements manifest. And that is how we find that there are 23 elements in total that manifest together. The 23 elements in total that manifest together are Mahatattva, Ahankar, the 5 tanmatras, the 5 gross elements, the 11 senses. All of this together they are assembled by the Lord's Maya Shakti. And after they are all assembled by the Lord's Maya Shakti, then the Supreme Lord enters the universe and glances at it. After 1,000 years of inactivity, Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters into the universe and enlivens it by his presence. And then comes the Virat Roop. So basically, the Lord enters into the material universe in the form of Virat Roop. So everything that is created, rivers, mountains, skies, everything is simply a manifestation of the Lord's body, of the Lord's form. So all the form that you see into this world comes when Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters into this universe. And once Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters into the universe, life starts actually becoming, originated. Now, obviously, science has a very different way of explaining. Science talks about how Big Bang happened, one electric spark happened, and the first living entity got formed. The unicellular organisms. Here, our scriptures doesn't talk about it at all. Simultaneously, all entities are developed just by the glance. First, the glance of Mahavishnu, Karnadaksha Vishnu, which impregnates it, and then after Garbhodaksha Vishnu enters into the universe, all forms originate. That is the way in which the scriptures describe the way the universe gets created. There's a very beautiful story in the Chandogya Upanishad, which is called as Vaishvanara Vidya. And this story has a very beautiful discussion between six sages. So once five sages come together and are having a discussion, these five sages are first sage is named as Prachina Salar. The second sage is known as Satya Yagya. The third sage is known as Indradumna. The fourth sage is known as Janar. And the fifth sage is known as Budilar. All these five sages gather together and having a discussion on who is the Lord. How do you understand the Lord? No matter how much they discussed it, they were not able to come to any conclusion. And they decided to approach another sage whose name was Udalaka. And Udalaka was the son of another sage named Aruna. So they went to this sage Udalaka and he asked him, "Can you please explain to us who is God? How do we understand God in depth?" Udalaka said, "Even I am not qualified to explain this. Let us go to Ashwapati. He is a great master in this particular question and he will surely answer it." And who is Ashwapati? The father of Kaikai. All these six sages go to Ashwapati. And imagine, six sages are going to one Grahastha king, to ask him who is God. So Ashwapati, he is, performing a yagya at that point in time when all these six sages reach. And Ashwapati, he welcomes all these six sages and he tells all of them that please join in the yagya and participate in the yagya. I will give all of you all also dakshina at the end of the yagya. These six sages said, we will conduct your yagya, we'll participate in your yagya. We don't want any material dakshina. We only want we want you to teach us about God. That's the dakshina we want. So Ashwapati said, fine, you participate in the yagya, then I will answer your questions. So all of them participated in the yagya. And then Ashwapati asked them, please ask what is the question. So they all asked him, who is God? Please tell us in detail about who God is. Ashwapati, he said, you tell me so far how you have been worshipping God. And all of these sages tell one by one how they have been worshipping God. The first sage, Prachina Shalari, says, I worship the heaven. For me, worshipping the head of the heavens, Indra, is as good as worshipping God. Ashwapati says, you are only worshipping one part of the body of God. You are only worshipping the head of God. Then the next sage, Satya Yagya, he says, I worship the sun. Ashwapati says, you are only worshipping the eye of God. Then the next sage, Indradumna says, I worship the air, the wind element, such a powerful element. Ashwapati says, you're only worshipping the breathing of God. And then Janar says, I worship the sky. Ashwapati says, you're worshipping the stomach of the Lord. Budilar says, I worship water. Ashwapati says, you're worshipping the abdomen of the Lord. And then Udalakar, he says, I worship the earth. So Ashwapati says, you're worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. And then after hearing all of them, he said, none of you all have fully worshipped the Lord. If you only worship the heavens, you only worship the sun, you only worship the sky, you only worship the earth, you're only worshipping one part of the body of the complete Lord. And therefore he says, for you to really worship the Lord, you worship the complete form of the Lord, all of your sins will burn like cotton burns so quickly. And he explains that if you worship every part of the Lord divided individually, it will yield less results. But the complete result will come when you worship the Lord who is beyond all these individual parts. Instead of worshipping the small parts, you worship the complete personality of Godhead. And then Ashwapati gives another very beautiful example. He says, the Vedas are divided into 6 parts. The 6 parts of the Vedas are, the first part is called Siksha. The Siksha is the rules of pronunciation. Whenever you study Vedas, there are some rules of pronunciation. Those rules of pronunciation are called as Siksha. Then there is something called Vyakaran, which is the rules of grammar of the Sanskrit when you are reciting and studying the Vedas. Then the third part of the Vedas is called Niruktam, which is a dictionary to understand the Vedic nomenclature. Then there is something called Chandas, which are the types of meters that are there in the Vedas. Then there is astrology. Now astrology, according to Ashwapati, he says, astrology is not to find out about our life. The purpose of astrology is to find out when the Kriya and Karmas that are mentioned in the Vedas are supposed to be done. That is the purpose of astrology. When to do this particular yajna, when to do that particular yajna. That's the purpose of astrology. We're using astrology for some other purpose only. And then he says, the 6th part of the Vedas is called Kalpa. Or these are practical procedures, how to perform different Vedic yajnas. The Supreme Lord is possessing all these 6 parts, and these 6 parts are different limbs of the body of the Lord. So if there is a way to meditate, instead of meditating on one aspect, meditating on Siksha or learning only the Siksha is like meditating on the nose of the Lord. Learning only Vyakaran is like meditating on the mouth of the Lord. Learning only Niruktam is like meditating on the ears of the Lord. Only focusing on Chandas is like meditating on the feet of the Lord. Only focusing on astrology, Joshyam, is like meditating on the eyes of the Lord. And only focusing on Kalpa is like meditating on the hands of the Lord. The Supreme Lord is called Avyanga. Avyanga means he is perfect and complete. So instead of meditating on one aspect of the Lord, we meditate on the complete form of the Lord from top to bottom. That is when you get the complete result of your meditation. So here, when we are studying creation, instead of studying one aspect of creation, we study creation in totality along with the Creator. Only when you study creation in totality along with the Creator will you actually get the full benefit of studying the Vedas. So Lord Brahma, he is explaining to Narad Muni how the creation is created so far in the 3rd question. The 4th question Brahma asks Narad Muni is, Yat samstham, how is it conserved? The answer to this question, Lord Brahma explains. He explains that after the whole creation is done, and after the creation runs for a certain period of time, and when it is time for winding up the creation, Lord Mahavishnu absorbs everything back into his body. And when he absorbs everything back into his body, exactly the reverse of it happens. All these elements merge into each other. Earth goes into water, water goes into fire, fire goes into air, air goes into ether. And these elements then go into this the Adi Bhuta, and then the Adi Bhuta, the Karya, Karana, and Karta, they go into the Ahankar. Ahankar merges into Mahatattva. Mahatattva merges into Pradhan, and that Pradhan is inhaled by Karnadakshay Vishnu, Mahavishnu. And then when creation again happens, the reverse completely happens. So all of us, in one sense, are residing inside the body of Mahavishnu for thousands of years. And then after thousands of years being inside the body of Vishnu, then we come out and we get individual forms and existence, basically. And then Narad Muni is asking Lord Brahma, Yat Param, what it depends on, what the entire creation depends on. Lord Brahma, as an answer to this question, what this entire creation depends on, he says, only by His will I create. Only by His will Lord Shiva destroys. And only by His will He Himself in His eternal form as Vishnu maintains everything. So practically everything that we have, everything that is there in this world is dependent on the Lord and is completely taking shelter of the Lord. When in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we find this discussion of Gajendra Moksha. And in the section of Gajendra Moksha, sorry, I think in the 8th canto, in the section of the Gajendra Moksha, there is a very beautiful episode. There is a very beautiful, deeper analysis of that section. And this again is based on a Sthala Puran of one temple. So when Gajendra was struggling with his feet in the mouth of a crocodile for thousands of years, for a long period of time, finally, to save himself from the mouth of the crocodile, Gajendra loudly calls out to the Supreme Lord, and while calling out to the Supreme Lord, he calls out to the word Adi Moolam. Adi Moolam means the one whom the Vedas celebrate as the first living entity. So the first primordial one in the universe is called Adi Moolam. So Gajendra says, "Oh Adi Moolam, please come and save me from the clutches of this crocodile." On hearing the cry of Gajendra, the Supreme Lord immediately leaves from Vaikuntha. And he leaves in a hurry because his devotee is suffering so badly. And one of the reasons the Lord is called as Hari, because he is always in a hurry to save his devotees. So he left in a hurry and he left on Garuda, because according to him, Garuda is the fastest means of transport. But as Garuda was flying towards the Gajendra Moksha area, the Lord felt Garuda is too slow. So what he did was, he jumped off Garuda and he put Garuda on his back and he started flying towards the Gajendra Moksha Sthan. And imagine, so Garuda was like totally bewildered. He is used to carrying the Lord and he is like really fast. And here the Lord feels the speed of Garuda is so slow. He puts Garuda on his back and he flies towards Gajendra. And when he finally reaches the place where Gajendra was struggling, the Lord did not kill the crocodile immediately. What he does was, he did not want to harm the leg of Gajendra, which is in the mouth of the crocodile. We shoots the disc, it might cut Gajendra's leg. So he got off and he pulled the crocodile and the elephant on the shore. And then he cut off the head of the crocodile so that the elephant's leg is not harmed at all. So finally, when Gajendra was rescued, then he plucked the lotus and he offered it to the Lord. And the Supreme Lord personally took Gajendra to Vaikuntha, to the spiritual world. And therefore that particular episode is known as Gajendra Moksham, because Gajendra was actually taken by the Lord to Vaikuntha, to the spiritual world. So when Gajendra reached the spiritual world, he told the Lord, "My dear Lord, I have a doubt." He said, "My doubt is that, why did you come to protect me with Garuda on your shoulders? I can understand that the speed of Garuda was not good enough. But You could have just left him and come on your own, right? Why did you carry Garuda on your shoulders? Who is going to carry an airline? If your cycle is not working, you leave the cycle and run, right? Who carries the cycle also along? So Gajendra was really confused. He said, "Why did you carry him? Why did you just leave him and come?" Um, the Lord, he gave explanation. He said, "When you called out to me, you said Adi Moolam. You said that the name, specifically the name that you took of mine, is the one who is praised by the Vedas. The first one who is praised by the Vedas. So because you said that particular name, I am the first one praised by the Vedas. I wanted to get someone as a proof that I am that one. You called me, and I wanted to make sure that I prove it to you that I am that one that is praised by the Vedas first. And I specifically got Garuda because he said every part of Garuda's body is the Vedas personified. And he says, so it is explained that the Gayatri mantra is the eyes of Garuda. The Trivat is the head of Garuda. The Vamadevyam is the body of Garuda. The Stoma is the soul of Garuda. The Chandas are the limbs of Garuda. So like this, he went on talking about how every part of Garuda's body is the Vedas personified. He's explained when Garuda flies, it's like chanting of the Veda mantras, basically. That's the meaning of, that's why Lord Vishnu got Garuda with him. And he said, Vedas personified is Garuda. To show you that the Vedas personified are praising me, I brought Garuda with me as a proof. So Garuda, when he heard this, he was there only. So Garuda tells Gajendra, actually, all the Vedic mantras are present in the Lord only. His entire body is filled with the Vedic mantras. So Gajendra was very confused. Hey, Lord is saying the body of Garuda is, all the Vedas, and Garuda is saying that the Lord is all the Vedas. Gajendra is saying, who actually is the Vedas? Can you please tell me? You are both confusing me. And then Garuda explains, actually, the Supreme Lord is called Vedanga. Every limb of his body is made of the Vedas. But because he is so merciful, he has given that particular name to his devotee, to me. So actually, from a logical point of view and from a practical point of view, the Lord only is the personification of all the Vedas. But because he is so merciful, he considers his devotees also to be an expansion of himself only. So all the qualities that are there in the Lord are also there in the devotees of the Lord. And therefore, Garuda was carried by the Lord in that particular episode. So, when Narad Muni is asking this question, that what does the world depend on? The world depends on the Supreme Lord, and practically every aspect of the Supreme Lord is the personification of all the scriptures. And then the last question that Narad Muni asks is, Yakcha, what is the world composed of? What is the universe composed of? So if you look at these tables that are given over here, in this it is mentioned in great detail how, so Lord Brahma is telling Narad Muni in great detail how every part of this universe, every single part of this universe is one of the limbs of the Lord. So if you look at this, the seven dhatus, the Lord's organ are the seven dhatus, are the seven Vedic meters. The body of the Lord is the active principle of everything. The hair and the beard of the Lord is the clouds. The nail of the Lord is the lightning, minerals and metals. The arms of the Lord are the Lokapal who protect the people. The steps of the Lord is Bhur, Bhuvar and Swargalokas. The lotus feet of the Lord is a protection and bestowal of all desires. The place of evacuation of the Lord is envy, misfortune, death and hell in this world. The back of the Lord is frustration, ignorance and immortality. The veins of the Lord are the great rivers and rivulets. The bones of the Lord are the mountains. The belly of the Lord is the oceans, juices in food, pradhana and destruction. The heart of the Lord is the mind. The consciousness of the Lord is dharma in everyone, truth and knowledge. So practically every aspect of creation, if you look at these two tables, every single aspect of creation is in the form of the Lord only. So there is not a single element in creation that does not exist in the Lord and that does not manifest in the Lord's being. And therefore, if you look at creation from a materialistic point of view, we miss out the presence of the Lord in everything. But if you look at creation from a spiritual point of view, practically in every single aspect of creation, the Supreme Lord is there. And Brahma, who is the secondary creator of this universe, he is not only telling Narad Muni all the technical aspects of creation, but he's also helping Narad Muni to find the Lord within all the technical aspects of creation. So practically, the creation cannot be created without the presence of the Lord at every stage of it. And that is how Lord Brahma is explaining the process of creation, the creator, and every aspect of creation to Narad Muni through these 6 questions answered by Lord Brahma to Narad Muni. So with this, we come to the end of this particular section of this second chapter. The next 3 chapters, the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th chapters, are very interesting chapters, which are conclusions of this discussion. And specifically, the 9th chapter, there is a very beautiful section of the 9th chapter called Chatushloki Bhagavatam. So, in 4 shlokas, the entire Bhagavatam is presented, and this is presented by the Lord Himself. So, it's said that if you study those 4 shlokas of the Bhagavatam, it is as good as studying the whole Bhagavatam, all 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam. Just like there is a Chatushloki Gita in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter. Similarly, this particular section of the 9th chapter of Bhagavatam, 2nd canto, the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, which we will be seeing. So, these 4 chapters of the 2nd canto will help us conclude the 2nd canto. So, hopefully, in the next 2 or 3 sessions, we should be, concluding the 2nd canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So, please do come and attend these few more sessions. Next week, next Thursday, we will not be having a class. I'm traveling to Vrindavan on Sunday. So, I don't think I'll be able to make it for the next Thursday for the class. But we will continue the class after that, the Thursday after that. Okay. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.